Hi everybody, my name is Jim. I'm the owner of Sprague Woodturning and welcome to my channel. So last week I did the fridge kiln video. If you haven't had a chance to check that out, please do. I should probably watch that one before this one. So anyway, I said I'd do a video midweek and that's what we're doing today. And before we even talk about the fridge, I want to actually address what I do to the bowls prior to them coming in to the fridge kiln. I think that's one of the keys to successfully drying wood in a kiln that's going to have high temperatures, and my observations on drying bowls over lumber and that kind of stuff. So we'll go to the drying shed and we'll talk about what I do to the bowls prior to putting them in the kiln here. Okay, so here we are out in the drying shed. This is a 12 by 16 structure. It does have vents on the ends, and the soffits up here are also vented as well. And of course on the other end, see that? Yep. And there's no heat, and as you can see, there is no insulation. This shed sits in probably, I'll say 75% sun, and it gets a little bit in the afternoons shade. So, but it's usually always typically cooler in here than it is outside. A freshly made wooden bowl, or any wood turning really, the enemy is heat. You got to get it out of the heat. So now, in a normal year, which this has certainly not been for me, I had to have hip surgery in December at Christmas time. And so ordinarily when I would rough out bowls, it would be January, February, March, and they'd be up on these racks. So I've had to rough these out in the summertime and we've had a really hot summer here, upwards to almost 40 degrees on our back deck, which is not normal for here. Again, 2020, it's a weird year. So ordinarily they'd be up on the racks, but I've got to keep them down on the floor where it's cooler than it is certainly up top. I think one of the keys to successfully drying wood bowls is to basically rough them out. Let them sit for 2 or 3 months. If you follow my channel, you know that I use Acre Seal, which is an end grain sealer. It goes on the entire inside and outside of the bowl. And then if they come in here for 2 or 3 months, January, February, at the end of March, I'll start rotating bowls through the kiln. You'll typically have less loss. So anyway, when these bowls, if you don't follow these methods, I'm not saying that you're going to have issues, but from previous experience, I know that if I take a bowl that's green and full of moisture, seal it with end grain sealer and put it in the kiln right away, that there's a good likelihood that it's probably going to split. So I think it's best to not only bring them out here to prevent that, but if these bowls sit out here for a month or two, 3 months preferably, they're going to rotate faster through your kilns. So that's another consideration. And that's why January, February, and March, there's no shows. That's typically why I would do that in the wintertime. It's a terrible time to do it, but as far as doing shows are concerned, there's none really that time of year. So I don't need a lot of stock. So another note on here. So on this upper shelf, when the bowls do come out of the kiln, I don't know if you remember that one or not. I actually did a coring a maple burl. That's what that bowl is there. And it doesn't give it justice. It's huge. But when they come out of the kiln, I put them on the upper racks here in the shop, or sorry, in the drying shed. They get lots of heat up there and they stay good and dry till I finish them. But anyway, that I think is one of the keys to drying wood. Sealing them, letting them sit for 2 or 3 months, and then rotating them through the kilns. So this may be very common knowledge to a lot of people, but a bowl, when you're trying to dry a bowl, it's not like drying lumber. A bowl has a lot of end grain on it compared to, a piece of wood. You look at a piece of wood, this is all face grain, face grain, face grain. It's only on the ends. So proportionately, there's a lot more face grain than there is end grain. And that's why you can put wood through kilns faster than you can these bowls. Anyway, that's been my experience. Comments are welcome on that as well. I think that you really have to baby bowls compared to lumber like this. And I mean, even the lumber industry, they'll sticker lumber and put it out in the yard, and it'll stay there for months before they start putting it through their kilns, because they know that it's actually going to be faster and it'll dry out. You know, I typically start at 20 degrees Celsius for a couple of weeks, and then as the bowls start to dry out, I increase the temperature in the kiln. Usually when I put a bowl in that's 20% moisture content, it's usually in there no more than a month. And that'll get me down to 7 or 8%. And it'll finish off at 50 degrees Celsius or 122 Fahrenheit, I think it is. So that way I know they say that I think 135 degrees internal temperature of wood will kill all insects. You know what? If you make it through 120 degrees Fahrenheit or 50 degrees Celsius, you deserve to live. So that's not a real concern for me anyway. I try not to use real buggy timber anyway. So anyway, that's what I wanted to say about the bowls as far as drying or prepping them prior to going into the kiln. So let's go in and talk about the kiln and stuff that I want to do to improve it. Okay, so here we are at the kiln. Right now, I've got the controller set at 49.5. It actually just finished the cooling cycle, so that's why it's at 49.4. It doesn't take real-time measurements, as far as I can tell anyway. It'll take measurement every minute or two, and then it adjusts the controller from there. It's not a big deal. So anyway, it's set at 49.5. When it hits 50 degrees, it'll run for half a degree, and then it'll shut off, and it'll just keep doing that. A couple of observations. When I first started, I could get to 30 degrees, no problem. Started going above 30 degrees, I started having issues trying to get up to temperature, and it's mainly because I was losing a lot of heat through the bathroom exhaust fan, because it's a squirrel cage fan, and it was just leaking out through it. So actually, I don't know if you can see, but there's a thermometer up there, and I was kind of curious to see what was going on, and sure enough, it was 32 degrees with the kiln shut off, going out the end of the exhaust. So you know what, that's no good. So then I made a baffle system to go inside on the very top. And I did that just as an experiment to kind of choke it off to see if it would rise. And sure enough, the temperature did come up, and then it started working properly. Believe it or not, right now I've got two 100-watt light bulbs inside of this. And that's the great thing about this controller. You could put a whole bunch of heat in there, and it will, it'll take it out. So it's great that way. One of my subscribers, sorry, I can't remember your name, he mentioned bringing this up. This is the light, of course, and plugging it into the heat side of the plug. And that way, when the controller switches to cooling mode and pulls the moisture and the heat out of the kiln, it will shut the light bulb off. The only issue that I really have with that is I want the fan to stay on longer, and so that's kind of why I haven't done that. But I may do some experiments and try that to see how it works, because after all, one of the main reasons why I put this in is because I'm worried about fire. So anyway, I'm going to take the baffle system out of the top of this, and I'm just going to buy a 3-inch wastegate, so that for your dust collection system, and I'm just going to open and close that as I see fit for whatever temperatures I'm working at. And the combination of that and the dampeners down below, you can really fine tune this thing. Ideally, I'd like to see this thing run for about a half hour on, half hour off. So anyway, it's something I'm going to have to work and play with, and same thing with you. It depends on your environment as well. Again, we're in growing zone 4B here. Right now, it's working great. These bowls have really probably only been in there for 4 days. And if I had to guess, I bet you a bunch of them are dry down to 7% already. Let's open this up, measure up some bowls, and then we'll finish this video up. Okay, let's open up the fridge. And I don't know if you can see this up here or not, but this is just a little baffle system I was talking about that I made. And it's just 2 pieces of plywood with holes in it that are staggered that you can open and close it to get ventilation through. This will be a moist environment, and I don't think that's a good idea. So that's why I want to put that 3-inch wastegate on the outboard end of this. This is very similar setup to what I used to use. So that's an adapter that screws into the the light socket, and of course there's an electrical port on the side of it, and I was able to plug another light bulb in there. So those are two 100 watt light bulbs. Once I get this baffle system corrected on the top, I suspect I'll be able to go down to 1. That other fridge that I had prior to this, I could never get it to 50 degrees Celsius, never. So, you know, right now I'm further ahead of where I was with that other fridge. Anyway, let's pull some bowls out and do some measurements and see what we got. Okay, so I've pulled all the bowls out, I've measured them all, and they're all down to 7% except for 2. I think they're 2 maple bowls, and they're actually on the door. That might be why they're not as dry as the other ones. That's great. Those are great results. It would have taken probably longer than the other kiln, just because you can't control the temperature within it. The one thing that I failed to mention is, so when I'm drying my bowls in the kilns, probably every day or two, I'll open it up and have a look at the bowls and see if there's any splitting. I'll actually spin the bowls within there, you know, 180. And if you happen to get a crack, I use the thin CA glue. This is the stuff from Starbond. Again, there's a link in the description where you can get 10% off on your next order. I'll put that in the crack, and then that'll hopefully prevent it from migrating any further. And if the bowls are thick enough, when they're put back on the lathe, all that can be trimmed away, and you never even know there was a crack. If you don't stop that cracking, it's probably going to continue to migrate until it goes all the way through the bowl, and then you'll have to address it with other inlay stuff like I do. So yeah, that's it. The plan is to load the kiln up again with bowls 20%-ish in moisture content, and I'm going to do regular updates on that to run that whole series through the drying cycle. It's going to be, I'm not going to do a special video on it. It's going to be every Friday with my normal inlays. And speaking of inlays, I've got a really cool inlay coming up on Friday, so make sure you stick around for that. But it's going to be another bowl repair / save. So yeah, anyway, these videos take days to shoot, so I don't know when it's going to be within that day, so that's kind of where it's going to be. So you're going to have to watch the whole thing. Hopefully, oh, the one last thing I wanted to mention, the controller actually has, you can set an alarm. So that controller was set at 50 degrees to come on. I set the alarm at 55. So if something happens and the temperature climbs within the kiln, the alarm will sound, and then you'll know there's an issue. I could have got, for another $20, I could have got another model that has Wi-Fi. And then that, of course, will send an alarm to your phone, and you can control it with your phone. And that's really cool as well. So anyway, that's it. Take care, stay safe, and we'll see you Friday.